Indicted Fiction, the most untrue crime podcast out there. Everything you're about to hear is fictional, but the feelings you may experience are 100% real. The Case of Adam's Murder, Episode 6, Dead Relatives, recorded the night of October 26th. Confirmation. It was the confirmation I fucking needed. I cannot believe out of all people, Slim was the one to be of value. Well, in terms of the investigation, all people have value. It was too late to do so, but I already planned on seeing Mama Maria as soon as I got off work the next day. All night I thought about it. I was so proud of myself. So fucking proud. My hunch was right. And after sitting there, staring at the dark ceiling and feeling proud of myself for a while, I realized that I actually needed to do something with the confirmation. So this morning, I got woken up by my mother. She insisted I wake up an hour before work, despite me being able to be dressed and on my way in 5 minutes. The bike ride over would take about 15 minutes, but that was a breeze. She combed my hair back and gave me something that pierced my heart as much as it pierced my skin. As I slipped on the blue vest, my mom came over with an enamel pin. She poked it through the vest, inevitably stabbing me. I winced, pulling the vest away to see a small spot of blood on my white t-shirt. She apologized, but I probably felt worse than she did. The pin was of a skull, and it said, "Anxiety," in squiggly letters. My mind went back to the jean jacket in Adam's closet, the one covered in enamel pins. Adam liked pins. Adam suffered with anxiety since he was a kid. Yet again, I was dealing with confirmation, but this was not the sort that made me jump for joy. There was an instance where I was looking my mother in the eyes, and she was holding the pin, still stuck in my vest, but pulled away from me. I stared deep into her eyes and almost called her out. I almost said, this job wasn't meant for me, it was meant for Adam. But saying it in my head made me realize how dumb it sounded. Of course the job was for the one going through rehab, the one that was gone a lot. The one that stole just to get high. I stayed home and read books. I had an interest in journalism. I never got in trouble, but with Adam gone, I guess my mom thought it could help me. I think she's seen me struggle. I've been out of the house a lot, hanging out with people I never would have if Adam was still around. I know she cares, I just wish she would show it in other ways. I gently took the pin from her and snapped it in place just below my name tag. Touching it, I thought of Adam's chest, how it would never rise and fall again. How it would never embrace anyone ever again, how he would never live again. I grabbed my mom and forcefully hugged her, hot tears already rolling down my cheeks. She told me everything would be all right. I knew that was a lie. I may be here, healthy as can be, breathing the cigarette smoke-infested air and eating a gas station burrito, and I may be able to walk the streets and smile, but deep down, I'm broken. I'll never get to know him. I know you'll listen to this, whoever you are, and you'll say, well, she knew him pretty well, I'd say. But as the girl that lived it, I don't think I do. Growing up across the hall from us was a family exactly like us. A mom, a dad, a sister, and a brother. They even had a cat that later inspired Adam's need for one. The brother and sister were similar in age as well, and about 5 years older than us. I hung out with the girl sometimes while Adam and her brother played ball. She'd always ask me questions about Adam, and I never knew the answers. What's his favorite color? I had shrugged my shoulders. I don't know. By the way, her name was Kathy. So Kathy would always gawk at me and answer the question about her own brother. Well, Timmy's favorite color is pumpernickel. I know because we tell each other everything. I was jealous, so I started asking Adam questions. Mind you, we were around 7 and 8 years old. Adam, what's your favorite color? He was standing in the kickball field at school when I asked. He ignored me, calling to one of his friends instead. So I asked again. He so quickly turned to me and shoved me down, spitting, "Don't ask me things." I was wounded to say the least, and from then on, I was just a background character in his life. Occasionally, I took precedence in his mind, but then again, it was about as often as a person thinks about their mailman. That's why the note and the gun surprised me so much. I know he cared. It was a given. We're brother and sister, right? Yeah, I may not have known his favorite color, but I knew he hated to leave me anywhere alone. Something about me being alone bothered him. Shit, sometimes I think he would have taken me into the bathroom with him if he wouldn't have been called a weirdo. He could be very clingy at times, but he wouldn't speak in these moments. Like sitting beside me while I read, or bringing his lunch over to my table only to ignore all my questions and eat in silence. Or even temporarily stealing my things just so he could see me. Maybe he was trying to emulate a cat's behavior, to be there, but not speak and not address the other person. As a teenager, I learned that he listened to what I said, even my mumbling. I had been upset that no one got me a candygram for Valentine's Day. I had thought for sure that a boy who shall not be named would have gotten me one, but there I was without one. Adam nodded, but he said nothing. When I got home from the library that night, there it sat on my bed, a stolen candygram that was meant for a Melissa. It wasn't remotely close to Abigail, and it wasn't for me, but I indulgently ate it with a broken heart. So there was the pin on the chest of the vest meant for Adam. There was a light mist in the air, and it caught up as dewdrops on my sweatshirt as I sped past traffic in the bike lane. The dying trees around me reminded me that it's close to Halloween, the only holiday Adam really took part in. I rode my bike into the supermart parking lot, wondering if the cashier with no teeth was going to be the one showing me around today. It wasn't. A very tall black man saw me waiting by the cash registers when I first arrived, and he introduced himself. The first thing out of my mouth was, "Is my bike okay locked up out front?" His eyes widened and he shook his head. So the first thing we did was move my bike into the break room. I already had a good feeling that I would be looked after here. His name is Jamal, and he's super sweet. His height had me taken aback, and when I asked how tall he is, he said he's 6'7". That's a whole 1.5 feet taller than me. He explained that he's the manager, and if I have any questions or problems, to go to him. I'm glad the manager isn't the toothless lady. She's always rude. I got the produce section and wished I wouldn't have left my sweatshirt in the break room. Jamal's hair distracted me while he showed me how to stack the bell peppers. He has a streak of gray in his tight black curls, reminding me of the Bride of Frankenstein. I couldn't say this, of course, fearing he might not like the reference, but I did wonder if he'd ever been electrocuted. He talked about a lot while he watched me load new rolls of bags on the dispensers and unload sacks of baby carrots. He spoke of his family, saying he had a daughter similar in age with me. I told him I remembered her from high school. She was another girl at the top of the class along with me, very quiet and reserved as well. If it wasn't for my shyness, I would have tried to be friends with her. He smiled and told me she's dead. Jamal didn't say it exactly like that. He said she temporarily moved to Nevada to go to college and had been one of the victims of a mass shooting. It was everything in me not to cry. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss. She was a wonderful person," but it felt so forced. I could see the tears in his eyes, and he said, "Thank you. I'm sorry for the loss of your brother." We stared at each other in silence for a minute before a customer interrupted us. It was then that I knew Jamal is someone to keep around. We had lunch together, and he told me that I'm a fast learner, and that he usually has to spend at least a week training people. I told him it was just stacking vegetables. He said, "Don't let anybody else hear you say that. They'll have you working in here for free." I laughed. Luckily, we had moved past the sadness of our lost loved ones and gotten into lighter topics. He talked about his other daughter. She was much younger than I and what he called an uh-oh child. She had just started kindergarten this year, and he was happy for her, but also scared. He had been bullied in school a lot, and she seemed to be making friends left and right. One thing he asked stuck with me. "You still live with your parents?" I nodded. Good. Stay with them as long as they'll let you." I think my parents planned for Adam and me to live with them in that apartment for the rest of our lives. Adam wasn't into girls, well, we thought that at least, and I'm not into people in general. I don't think the idea bothered them. My mother always worried she would end up like her grandmother, dying alone in an old folks' home. I told her I would never do that to them, and I will keep that promise until I die. Want to keep a piece of this podcast forever? Signed copies of Adam's Murder are now available for pre-order. The book can be personalized at request and includes an exclusive 3-page epilogue that won't be available anywhere else. Order your signed copy at authoralianapoe.com/shop at a limited discounted price. Pre-order will last until the publication date, October 7th, 2022, so get in your order while you can. So after lunch, I was out on the floor alone. Jamal said I had it together and they needed a hand up front. Not too long after, a man I barely recognized came in, eyeing the fruit juice section. I asked if he needed any help, and when he turned to look at me, my heart stopped. Dark eyes narrowed on me, his brows knitting together in a V. A deep scar ran from the inner corner of his eye, across his cheekbone, and to his jawline. Ricardo. His expression sweetened, and he said that he was looking for a drink his daughter would like. I'm not ashamed to say I had a vision of murdering this man's daughter. I would do it in front of him if I knew he killed Adam. I pasted on a smile and showed him the strawberry banana drink. Can't go wrong with something sweet. He grabbed it and thanked me. The smell of cigarette smoke wafted around him as he left to look at the mangoes. When I thought it couldn't get any worse, Detective Bill walked in. I was angry, but I was at work. It was my first day and I couldn't risk anything, so I dove behind a rack of bread fresh out of the bakery. Bill walked in with such confidence for such a lanky man. I feel as if I could snap him in half if I so wanted to. He approached the mangoes, acting as if he was looking at them whilst whispering to Ricardo. I desperately wanted to hear what they were saying, but as they whispered back and forth, the intercom came on, screeching the day's deals into everyone's ears. I saw a wad of bills slip from Ricardo's pocket into Bill's hand, and right there I wanted to call them out. I wanted to scream, "Killers!" so everyone in the store would know. Adam didn't matter to Bill because his killer was paying him. Crime doesn't exist when the police are on the payroll of the drug lords. Detective Bill left, a sick smile on his face. I crouched down behind the bread and softly cried into my hands. I was really alone in this investigation. Toward the end of my shift, Chuck came in. He saw me and his grim face turned into a goofy, smiling one. I guess he didn't know I was starting a new job here, and my plan to not tell him was foiled on the first day. First thing out of my mouth was, "How was work yesterday?" His eyes widened and he looked like a ventriloquist doll with no puppet master. Then he smiled. "It was good." I nodded, stacking jalapenos. Mama Maria taught me to always wear gloves when dealing with peppers, so there I was wearing produce bags on my hands to stock the jalapenos. Chuck asked when I would be getting off work. I told him I only had a few more minutes and he said he'd wait. I had wanted to talk to Jamal some more, see how he was doing, but also didn't want Chuck to wait on me. He did his shopping while I finished up and clocked out. He was a nice guy, I guess, and I was glad to have someone around to talk to. As we walked out of the store together, me dragging my bike along, I thought of all the things I could tell him. I didn't think it was right of me to tell him about Chantel. It really wasn't my business to tell anyone. And I desperately wanted to tell someone about Detective Bill, but could I trust him? He put his arm around my shoulders as we walked in the direction of my apartment, and I let him. So instead of bringing our moods down entirely to talk about the investigation, I talked to him about Jamal. I told him that I really related to him, and it was sad to hear that such a smart girl with a bright future had passed. I even confessed how bad I felt, that I was glad someone else knew my pain. Everyone that knew Adam, of course, had been through the pain, but this man was off in his own life and wasn't connected to us. From the moment we met, we could sympathize with each other. Chuck quickly changed the subject. I had looked up to him when he abruptly changed the topic to the weather. I couldn't believe how disconnected he was. It was like he didn't care. I asked him why he did that, and he looked at me with that stupid innocent look he always tries to pull off, and said, "Did what?" I scoffed and pulled away from him, hopping on my bike. I rode off, yelling back, "Call me when you care." When I got to my apartment steps, after furiously pedaling, I realized Chuck was jealous. It wasn't a thought I came to realize naturally, but my mother's voice called out in my mind and said, "He's just jealous." She always told me things like that about guys, so it was believable that she would say something like that. And honestly, it was believable that Chuck was jealous. I shook my head and hauled my bike up the stairs, only to remember I was going to Mama Maria's after checking in with my parents. I sighed, pulling the bike with me. As I was walking, I saw Adam. He was walking away from me, but everything about him screamed Adam. His close-cut hair, baggy shorts, and big t-shirt even though it was freezing out. Even his shoes looked like the pair Adam frequently wore. My voice had caught in my throat. I wanted to speak out as tears flooded my eyes. What if he turned around and wasn't Adam? What if he was? My nose burned, so I sniveled, and the man turned around. The illusion was broken as his face resembled no person I had ever seen. I dove into my apartment, not wanting to be under the eyes of this stranger anymore. I checked in with my parents, letting them know I was off to see Mama Maria. My mom asked why, and I hadn't thought of an answer to give her. When I didn't answer, she turned from the stove for the first time since I had been home and saw the mix of tears and mist on my face. The tip of my nose was bright red from the cold, and I think it gave the impression that I had cried more than I really had. She patted me on the shoulder and told me to go, even gave me a box of chocolates to give Maria. I loathed the cold, but I also did not look forward to California's scorching suburban heat. The asphalt here gets so hot it can melt a flip-flop or a bicycle tire if it's in one place for too long. Trust me, I know. As far back as I can remember, Joel has confessed everything to his mommy. He and Adam couldn't get into anything without her knowing. "Mommy, we took some cookies from the cookie jar," he'd say, pouting. Adam would look at him, dumbfounded. I would snicker as I never got a share of the loot, but Maria didn't care anyways. She'd shrug it off and say, "That's okay, hee-ho." Mama Maria is very Catholic, and if we got stuck at her house on Sunday, you bet your ass we were stuck going to church with her and her children. In my time there, I saw a handful of people go to confession, and I think that's where it all started for Joel. His mother was his 24/7 confession booth. She answered the door and quickly let me in, making a hot chocolate for both of us and setting a chair by the fireplace for me. Once she was settled into her recliner, I did the normal thing. Asked how she was doing, gave her the chocolates. She said she was well, and I could see she was curious why I had come over. When there was a lull in the conversation and we were all up to date on each other's whereabouts, I hit her with it. My mom got me this job at Supermart. It's pretty boring. I waited a second as she smiled and nodded. Then bam. What does Joel do for Ricardo? Her eyes widened to the size of saucers. I could have laughed, but I didn't. I couldn't. She must have said, 5 times before I interrupted her. I heard he got a job working for him, and it's gotta be better than stacking fruits all day. I laughed, but Maria didn't laugh with me. After a few seconds of awkward silence and staring, she said, Ricardo is the manager at Saki. Saki. There's always a front in movies. The laundromat? The only laundry there is money laundering. The mechanic shop? The one in Oak Lane? The only thing they're fixing is sports games. Okay, but you get the point. Saki is a fruit drink manufacturer. Huge warehouse. Lots of space for lots of things. Yet again, confirmation. She has confirmed Joel is working for this man, and now I know where. I could have left then. That was all the information I needed. But I thought, why not try one last thing? I said, that's cool. What does Joel do there? She was prepared for this one, and said, he's a line worker, but he's hoping to move up to supervisor soon. I nodded. Do you think I should apply? Maria smiled and said, I think so. What days are you off? I was surprised to say the least. I'm part-time right now, so I'm off tomorrow. She said, I'll have Joel pick you up tomorrow morning so you can apply. I've never been more terrified in my life. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next Friday for Adam's Murder, Episode 7, Abomination. And a special thanks to my patrons, Vernon, Greg, and Steve. If you'd like to read my latest poetry, see my creepy sketches, and see all my future artistic plans, become a patron for only $3 a month. If you'd like to read the transcribed audio diary of Abigail Drummer, go to my website, authoralianapoe.com/blog. Each episode is posted on my blog under Indicted Fiction. Don't forget, Adam's Murder will be published as a paperback and ebook October 7th, 2022, when the finale of Indicted Fiction Season 1 airs. Pre-order begins today, so be sure to head over to my website and pre-order your signed copy today.